Most people live surrounded by noise, not just sound, but emotional noise. Opinions, reactions, competition, tension. Everyone's trying to be seen, to be heard, to stay relevant. It's a constant pull outward, toward movement, toward approval, toward control. But some people move differently. They don't chase the noise. They're calm even when others rush, grounded even when others panic. They don't compete to speak louder. They listen longer. They don't rush to prove their worth. They already know who they are. Carl Jung understood this kind of person well. He believed that true strength comes from what he called inner integration. When you know your values, understand your emotions, and stop depending on the crowd to tell you who to be. That kind of peace doesn't come from avoiding life. It comes from facing it and no longer needing to control everything. And when someone reaches that point, they become different. You can feel it in the way they talk. Slower, clearer, more direct. They don't react to every comment or take every disagreement as a threat. They're centered, like an anchor in a room full of waves. But here's the strange part. That calm doesn't always bring comfort to others. Sometimes it does the opposite. Your peace can make people restless. Your quiet confidence can feel like distance to those who only understand energy through noise. They might not realize it, but when they meet someone who doesn't mirror their emotions, it creates tension. Because most people are used to getting validation through shared stress, shared excitement, shared anger, shared chaos. When you don't join in, they can't read you. They don't know what you're thinking or feeling, and not knowing makes them uncomfortable. They start to wonder, why aren't you reacting? Why don't you seem bothered? Do you think you're better than us? They mistake calm for superiority, when in truth it's just self-control. Jung might say that this discomfort is the ego reacting to something it doesn't understand. When people see someone who's at peace, it reminds them that peace is possible, and that realization can feel like a challenge. Because if peace is possible, then chaos is a choice. Your calm presence quietly exposes the parts of people that are still unsettled. You don't have to say a word. Your energy says it for you. It says, you can stop chasing. You can stop proving. You can just be. But that message is hard to hear when someone has built their whole identity around the opposite. So sometimes calm people are misunderstood. You might be seen as cold, distant, or unfeeling, but what's really happening is projection. They're seeing their own discomfort in you. Your calmness isn't a threat. It's a mirror. It reflects back the inner storm they haven't faced yet. And that's why peace often attracts resistance. Because deep down, everyone wants it. But not everyone is ready to face what they'd have to give up to have it. So when you walk into a room and feel that quiet tension, don't doubt yourself. You're not out of place. You're the reminder. You represent what happens when someone no longer needs to be pulled in every direction just to feel alive. And while the crowd moves with the noise, you remain what Jung might call the still center, calm, aware, and quietly unshakable in a restless world. When you stay calm in a world addicted to reaction, people notice. Not because you're trying to stand out, but because your presence changes the atmosphere. It slows things down. It interrupts the emotional momentum that everyone else is caught inside. You don't need to say much. You don't need to argue or explain yourself. Just being still, just being composed, quietly shifts the rhythm of the room. And that alone can feel like resistance to those who depend on emotional chaos to feel alive. Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior is guided by what he called the collective mind, the invisible emotional field that connects people in groups. It's not logic that keeps people aligned, but shared emotion. Everyone feels it, even if they don't notice it. You laugh when others laugh, worry when others worry, react when others react. That's what creates a sense of belonging. Not the facts, but the feeling of being in tune. But when you don't match that rhythm, when you stay calm while everyone else is stirred up, it creates a ripple. It's small but powerful. Because your silence breaks the pattern. And patterns are what groups rely on. You might not realize it, but your calm can feel like a challenge to the unspoken rule. We all feel this way together. You break the emotional agreement without even meaning to. You become the still one in a circle of motion, the pause between their reactions, and in that pause, people become aware of themselves again. They feel their own emotions more clearly, and not everyone likes that. They might not understand why they feel uneasy around you. They might say you're hard to read, or that you don't seem to care. But what they really mean is, you're not feeding the same energy we are. They want confirmation through shared emotion, and when they don't get it, they interpret your calm as distance. Jung saw this dynamic often, the tension between the individual and the collective. He believed that when a person becomes more self-aware, more whole, they naturally begin to pull away from automatic group behavior. They stop reacting just to fit in. They think before they respond. They feel before they speak. That's individuality. And individuality, in an emotionally charged group, can look like disobedience. You may find yourself becoming a quiet disruption without meaning to. You don't join the gossip. You don't rise to the same outrage. You don't fuel the argument just to feel part of it. And suddenly, others sense a difference, not loud, but unmistakable. You'll notice subtle changes. People might test your calm, trying to pull you into the same storm they're caught in. They might tease you for being too serious, or accuse you of not caring. They may raise their voices just to see if you'll finally raise yours. It's not about you personally. It's about their discomfort with your stillness. You've become a mirror for their lack of control. Your calm shows them the tension they're holding, and it makes them restless. Because in that moment, they see two choices: keep running with the noise, or stop and face what's underneath it. And most people aren't ready to stop. That's why your calm presence feels disruptive. Not because you're breaking harmony, but because you're revealing that the harmony was built on shared chaos. Your steadiness shows the group how fragile their emotional balance really is. But don't let that make you doubt yourself. You don't have to match their intensity to belong. You don't have to shrink your calm to make others comfortable. In fact, your stillness is exactly what the space needs, even if no one can see it yet. You might feel isolated at times. You might feel like the quiet one in a room that rewards noise. But remember what Jung taught. Individuality is not isolation. It's strength. It's awareness. It's what allows you to stay human in a collective that often forgets to breathe. You're not rejecting others by staying calm. You're simply choosing not to be pulled into their storm. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do in a chaotic group is to be the one who doesn't react. Because silence can shift a room faster than shouting ever could. Your calm may not be loud, but it's contagious. Not through force, but through example. It doesn't dominate, it stabilizes. And slowly, the same people who felt uneasy around your peace begin to feel safer in it. That's the quiet disruption. You don't fight the chaos. You don't preach against it. You just stay still long enough for others to realize peace was an option the whole time. When people react strangely to your calm, it's easy to think you've done something wrong. You haven't. You've just become a mirror. Carl Jung said that every person carries a shadow, the hidden side of the mind that holds what we don't want to see about ourselves. It's not evil. It's not bad. It's simply the parts we've pushed away. Fear, jealousy, insecurity, anger, or the desire to control. Everyone has it, but not everyone is ready to face it. So when someone meets a person who's calm, grounded, and self-aware, it can stir that hidden side. Because your calm doesn't just show who you are. It quietly shows who they're not yet. It reminds them of the inner peace they haven't built, the control they've lost, the noise they still depend on. They don't see that consciously. They just feel something shift inside. An irritation, a tension, a sudden dislike they can't explain. It's the shadow being triggered. You might notice it in subtle ways. They interrupt you more. They question your tone. They make small, sharp comments that seem out of place. They're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the part of themselves they see reflected back. Jung called this process projection. It's when someone takes what they can't face in themselves and throws it outward, onto someone else. So when they say, "You're too calm," what they really mean is, "I've lost my own calm." When they say, "You think you're better," they might actually mean, "I don't feel good enough." They can't see that the problem isn't you. It's what you represent. This is how resentment is born without reason. Because the shadow can't fight the truth directly. It can't say, "Your peace makes me realize I don't have any." So instead, it finds another story. You're cold. You're distant. You're not like us, and it works, because that story protects them from facing their own discomfort. It keeps the shadow hidden. It lets them believe the tension comes from you, not from within. But here's the thing. Your calm doesn't need to fight that projection. It doesn't need to defend itself. Because the moment you start explaining or apologizing for your peace, you step out of it. You get pulled into the same emotional current that you've learned to rise above. You don't need to correct their misunderstanding. You only need to see it clearly for what it is, a reflection, not a truth. When Jung wrote about the shadow, he said that confronting it is uncomfortable because it shows us what we've ignored. So when someone reacts negatively to your stillness, it means your presence is doing something powerful. It's revealing, not attacking. Your calm might remind them of what balance looks like. Your restraint might expose how much they depend on reaction. Your clarity might highlight how confused they feel inside. They won't always thank you for that mirror. Most won't even realize it's there. But deep down, something in them recognizes it. Because truth, even when it's quiet, always leaves a mark. Sometimes the calmest person in the room becomes the most triggering, not because they bring conflict, but because they take away the excuses that hide it. Your stillness says without words, "You don't have to stay this way." And that's both comforting and confronting at the same time. You can't control how others respond to that reflection. But you can control how you hold yourself in the middle of it. Don't harden, don't shrink, don't start mirroring their emotion back. Stay steady, stay kind, stay aware. Because when you stay calm in the face of projection, something changes. Not just in you, but in them. Even if they never admit it, your peace becomes proof that self-control is possible. That a different way of being exists. That the storm isn't permanent. And sometimes that quiet example plants the first seed of awareness in someone who's never known peace at all. That's the power of being the mirror. Not to judge, not to correct, but to remind people of what's possible once they face the parts of themselves they've been running from. Groups are powerful. They can lift people up or pull them under. When people gather, something invisible happens. Emotions spread. They move from one person to another faster than logic ever could. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He wrote that when individuals come together, they often stop thinking as individuals. They start to feel as one, carried by a shared emotional current. It's not always bad. It's what helps people connect. But it can also be dangerous, because once a group runs on emotion, truth becomes hard to see. This is what Jung meant by the collective mind, a shared emotional field that people slip into without realizing it. When the group is joyful, everyone feels lighter. When it's tense, everyone feels restless. And when it's angry, the emotion multiplies until it feels justified, even when it's not. That's what psychologists today call emotional contagion, the unspoken spreading of mood. We match each other without thinking. A sigh, a raised tone, a sarcastic laugh, and suddenly everyone's in sync emotionally. It feels like unity, but it's really imitation. Now, imagine stepping into that environment with calm energy. You're not matching their anxiety. You're not feeding the same emotional rhythm. You're steady while the room is restless. Instantly, people notice, not with their minds, but with their nervous systems. Something in you doesn't align with the shared emotion, and that feels unfamiliar. Your calm breaks the rhythm. You don't dance to the same beat, and that makes others feel slightly off balance. They can't name it, but they sense it. Something's different about you. And because humans often fear what they can't predict, they start to question it. Why are you so quiet? Why don't you ever get upset? What's your problem? But the truth is, you're not the problem. You're simply not reacting the way the group expects. You're not mirroring their collective anxiety. You're standing outside the emotional pattern they've built together. And that alone can feel like a challenge, because people often mistake sameness for connection. They think being part of the group means feeling the same way. So when you don't, they feel rejected, even if you haven't rejected anyone. Jung believed that most people are unaware of how much of their behavior is shaped by the group's emotion. They think they're being themselves, when in truth, they're just echoing what everyone else feels. That's why your calm stands out. It's a sign of awareness. It shows that you're not ruled by the crowd's mood. You're guided by something internal. But to a group caught in shared unrest, calm doesn't look like awareness. It looks like resistance. It's not that they dislike you. They dislike the feeling of difference, because your steadiness reminds them that emotion isn't the same as truth. And when people are driven by emotion, truth feels like interruption. You'll notice this most when the group is tense. When there's gossip, outrage, or collective worry, that's when calm feels most disruptive. Your silence will seem louder than noise. Your lack of reaction will make others push harder, as if trying to wake you up. But don't mistake that pressure for rejection. It's confusion. They don't understand how to exist without reacting, so they expect you to react too. When you don't, it forces them to feel their own emotion, not the group's. And for many, that's uncomfortable. Jung would say that in those moments, your calm presence is not just stillness. It's integration. You're not separating from others. You're separating from their unconsciousness. You're reminding the space, without saying a word, that it's possible to feel without losing control. The irony is that people often accuse calm individuals of being detached, when in reality they're the ones most connected, but from a deeper place. They feel the group energy clearly. They just choose not to be consumed by it. That's not detachment. That's awareness. Over time, some people in the group might start to sense this difference, not as threat, but as relief. They'll begin to notice that when you're around, the energy feels steadier. They'll feel more grounded without knowing why, because calm, like emotion, can spread too. Quietly, slowly, but powerfully. That's the paradox Jung understood. Just as chaos is contagious, so is peace. And the person who refuses to mirror fear or anger becomes a quiet stabilizer, not by forcing calm, but by embodying it. So when you sense that tension, when others seem unsettled by your quiet, don't rush to change it. You're not out of sync. You're the counterbalance. You're what keeps the collective from spinning completely out of control. In a world that glorifies reaction, your calm is not weakness, it's leadership. It's proof that one person's awareness can shift the emotional temperature of an entire room. Not through control, not through argument, just through presence. That's the kind of quiet power Jung meant when he spoke about the integrated self. A person who can stay centered, no matter what the crowd feels. And that's why calm people sometimes threaten those lost in chaos. Because you show, simply by existing, that peace is stronger than noise. Your calm can make people feel judged, even when you say nothing. They sense something in you that doesn't react the way they do, and it unsettles them. Jung noticed that people often fear in others what they haven't accepted in themselves. So when you stay calm, it reminds them of the control they don't have. It shows them the space between reaction and choice. And that space feels uncomfortable. That's why they test you. They'll try to push you, provoke you, make you react. If you break, they can believe your peace wasn't real. But if you stay steady, they have to face what your calm reveals. You don't have to fight back or prove anything. Your silence already speaks. It says, control doesn't need to shout. Peace doesn't need permission. People might call you distant or detached, but they're only describing what they don't understand. Your calm isn't a wall, it's balance. And that balance quietly shows others what's possible when they stop letting emotion run their lives. Your calm doesn't attack anyone, it just exists. And sometimes that's powerful enough to make the world around you tremble. Peace is not the absence of noise, it's the ability to stay steady inside it. And when you find that kind of calm, it changes how people see you and how they feel around you. Some will be drawn to it. They'll feel safe near you, even if they don't know why. Others will resist it. Your calm will remind them of everything they've been running from, their own unrest, their own confusion, and they'll try to pull you back into the noise with them. But that's the test of awareness, to stay grounded even when your calm is misunderstood, to remain centered even when others mistake your stillness for arrogance or detachment. Carl Jung believed that the self becomes whole only when it stops being ruled by the crowd. When you stop chasing approval and start choosing alignment. When your peace no longer depends on how others feel about it. You don't need to prove you're calm. You don't need to defend it. You just need to hold it. Quietly, consistently, until it speaks for itself. So keep your stillness, not as a wall, but as a mirror. A reminder of what balance looks like. Stay true to that quiet center within you, no matter how loud the world gets. Because in the end, the calm person doesn't lose. They simply outlast the storm.